Welcome, Year 11 Modern Historians, to our first seminar presentation on the decline and fall of the Romanovs. My intention is that by the end of this seminar, you will have enough knowledge and understanding to be able to describe what the Russian Empire was like at the beginning of the 20th century and be able to explain how it was governed and why it was so difficult to govern. So in this particular seminar, we're going to have a look at the Russian Empire in 1900, when Nicholas II inherited the throne and the empire. We're going to have a look at the land and climate of Russia, and we're going to have a look at its people. Okay, Russia's empire was huge. It comprised 1/6 of the world's surface. Here we are, you can see here the Russian Empire in 1904. It spanned 2 continents, Europe and Asia. There are 2 mountain ranges, 7 major rivers, 5 seas and oceans bordering Russia, and 12 countries were neighbouring its borders. Russia has quite good natural defences, but it is cold. The rivers and sea trade can only happen in spring because it's iced over in winter. Agriculturally, the Russian Empire was quite poor. Most of the land could not be farmed, so it was of little use. The Black region was the most fertile, and this is the Black region called European Russia, and most people lived in this area. Russian Central Asia, which we also call Eastern Russia sometimes, this came under Russian rule in 1885, this area over here. This includes Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Siberia, this massive green bit here, has been historically part of Russia since the 17th century, and it accounts for about 77% of Russia's land area, but only contains a fraction of its population. As I said before, most people lived in this area here, European Russia, but Siberia becomes historically significant in our study when we look at the Lena River massacre in 1912. In the Russian Empire at the turn of the century, communication was quite difficult. There were few paved roads, road travel was slow, and often you couldn't pass through the roads because you'd get bogged down. Rivers and the railways were used for longer journeys, and the Trans-Siberian Railway really was the only line of communication across this vast expanse of Russia. Here is a map of the Trans-Siberian Railway. So it's about 4,700 miles from about the Ural Mountains to the Sea of Japan over here. It was built under Nicholas II's father, the Tsar Alexander III, and after it was completed in the early 1900s, the Russian people migrated from European Russia to Siberia in large numbers than ever before. Okay, the Russia that we are going to study was home to more than 150 million people and was strikingly diverse. Only about half of them were ethnic Russians, most were Poles and Ukrainians, and most people spoke a different language and had their own customs. This incredible diversity in the Russian Empire was captured quite beautifully by chemist and photographer Sergei Prokudin-Gorsky, and here he is over here to your right on this slide. He travelled by train under the permission of the Tsar himself, and his colour photos captured images of peasants from rural Russia, the nomadic peoples of Central Asia, and the mountain peoples of the Caucasus during the twilight years of Tsarist Russia. Here we can see some of these photos now. We have a Dagestani couple here, they're mountain people, so you can see the mountains right behind them here. And to your right here, we have a group of Jewish children with a teacher. Under the last two Tsars, the Jewish people suffered quite a lot when were persecuted, with many of them emigrating to America, and later on they would be significant in the revolution. Here also we have here an Uzbek nomadic woman in traditional dress. You can see here in her jewelry and in her hair. Under the Russians, though, a lot of the nomadic peoples in Central Asia started to be encouraged to abandon their nomadic ways and come to some more permanent settlements and under Russian rule. Here we have some peasant girls offering berries outside their traditional homes. You can see just stunning colour in their dresses over here. It's really quite beautiful. So, as we can see here from this amazing list of Nicholas Romanov's official title, we've got Emperor and Autocrat of all the Russias, Tsar of Moscow, Kiev, Vladimir, Novgorod, Kazan. I'm not going to read them all. Being Emperor and Autocrat of all the Russias was really no mean feat. There's huge diversity and complexity in this empire that he inherited and presided over. So now we're going to have, now that we know a little bit about the Russian Empire, let's take a look at how it was governed. Some really important concepts that we need to bear down here. Tsarism is the first concept. It's a term that we use to describe a system of government, a system of ruling, I should say, where one person is the ruler, and that is the Tsar. His will is the law. He is a divine ruler. Okay, he has the God-given right under the Russian Orthodox Church. Tsar is the Russian word for ruler, and traditionally Russian culture has relied on a strong central ruler. We can see that even today in the form of Vladimir Putin. Okay, so the laws of Russia issued in the 18th and 19th century outlines that the Tsar was an autocratic and unlimited monarch. What does this mean? Autocracy is a political system, unlike a democracy, where there is no constitution, okay, to limit a monarch's power. Here in Australia, we have a constitution states that Parliament makes laws and governs for the people that elected them, but in an autocracy, the monarch or the autocrat was the government. Okay, so the leader or the monarch or the autocrat had to be quite a strong person, capable of making hard decisions. And as we will see, Nicholas II was probably not the best candidate for this onerous and rather difficult task. The government was managed by appointed officials who all swore loyalty to the Tsar, not to the state, and the civil servants could only resign with permission from the Tsar. So really the quality of the government depended on the autocrat, and historian Orlando Figes would later say that Russia was an autocracy without an autocrat. So let's park that and remember that for later. So how did this all work? How did Tsarist Russia function and govern? Well, the Tsar was the government, as we've talked about. He can do whatever he wanted without consulting anybody. There was no parliament. All right. Political parties were not allowed at this stage. Definitely no freedom of speech, no freedom of assembly, no freedom of religion. Books and newspapers were heavily censored before they were printed, and there were limited opportunities for education unless you were wealthy. Okay, the police was used to maintain law and order and stop anybody from opposing the Tsar. And there were two groups of these: the secret police, or the Okhrana, who spied on suspected enemies of the Tsar, such as revolutionaries, and ordinary police, who did crowd control and sort of stopped any unrest or social riots and stuff like that. And in this picture here in the background, you can actually see Cossacks. The Cossacks were the people in this sort of uniform, and they had a reputation as soldiers, and often they were part of they worked as bodyguards for the royal family. So if you oppose the Tsar, you could be arrested arbitrarily, okay? You could be exiled to Siberia, like Lenin, and you could be put to death for opposing the Tsar. Underpinning it all was the Orthodox Church, which was a branch of Christianity that was the official religion of Russia. The church supported the Tsar. The Tsar was the head of not only Russia, but also the head of the Orthodox Church as God's chosen representative on earth. So that concludes our seminar for today, giving you the background on the Russian Empire as it headed towards the Russian Revolution and the fall of the Romanovs. In our next lesson, we are going to take a look at who was leading Russia during this tumultuous period. We're going to look at this good-looking yet tragic couple, the Emperor, or Tsar Nicholas II, and the Empress, or Tsarina of Russia, Alexandra.